Influx Studios.
So, how do we know when our song is ready for mastering? This is a big question. And this is not only to make my job easier, to tell you all this, but also to let you know the mind frame and what to expect out of your track when you send it to mastering. Because some people send it with this thing that they think we're going to make magic on their track happen. And I think a lot of these people, they make a track and they think that what's making them sound like whoever is the mastering, which is the strangest concept I've ever heard of, because it's like maybe your bass synth that you chose to use is what might make it sound like that track. I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, and mastering is something that, it's kind of a dark art, but it's nothing special. It's something that's a skill that you have to learn, but it's nothing special. We enhance something that's there. So the better your mix, the better the master. The better your production, the better the mix. So it's a very simple concept with that. So yeah, you can't expect us to do too much work. So what I did here is a pre-master checklist. So if anyone has like a little listing that they want to take or anything like that, this is one that I made for anyone that wants to get their stuff ready for mastering, whether for your own or to send to whoever. 1, check the mix bus. Make sure if you do have limiters or compressors on to tell us. Tell the mastering engineer. I'm not against using them, okay? And I'll be one of the only master engineers to tell you that, but the fact is, if you're used to using them and you've been mixing to a mix bus, and I'll even show you today how to use a mix bus, I'm not against it. And honestly, if you know what you're doing with a mix bus, it gives a nice touch. And a lot of old school engineers rely on their mix bus. A lot of us love using mix bus compression. So as long as you inform us, because mix bus compression is one of the steps that we actually do as a mastering engineer. We run a stereo compressor on the mastering chain. And it might be subtle enough that you did that, and I can see it on my ratios sometimes, but that doesn't mean that I know which one you used or how you used it. And for a better master, this is one thing I do need to know. The mix bus level, of course, and how much headroom. I'll also sit here and tell you that the -3 and -6 decibel headroom that you're all told is just to give us a little bit of a cushion. Because honestly, as long as it's not peaking or clipping, it's okay. Because we always gain stage. And on gain staging, we'll talk about that too, while I'm on the topic. So gain staging, because I know a lot of people were talking to me about that last time too. Gain staging is nothing more than changing your level before you're hitting a compressor. When you're recording in, it's a gain stage. So it's just saying your levels. Gain staging is super important for us as mastering engineers, super important for people as mixing engineers, and it's really relying on how much volume you're sending into something and how you're getting it out. That's what the makeup gain for is on the compression. If you're sending to the compressor, it's compressing it down. You want to make that up. That's a gain stage. And that's all we rely on with mastering. It's purely gain staging. So when I get your track and it's -0.1 and it's not peaking and I see it's not clipping anywhere, then that's okay for me. I'll bring it down to my -3 I needed at. I'll gain stage so I know what I'm hitting my compressor at. So examine the elements. Does everything sound cohesive and musical? And really focus in on this. And when I say cohesive and musical, it's not just about the sound or the tone of it or anything, but it's really how they relate and the frequencies relate. Which brings us to number 4, the frequencies. Are they clashing? Are your bass and kick clashing? This is a very important step. If your bass and kick are clashing, there's a few different things we can do. Sidechain compression, of course, is one of the most known ones. But if you don't really want that ducking effect, you want to blend a little bit better, multiband can help. Something called DMG Essence, which is actually a de-esser. If any of you guys do trap, dubstep, or you're using a lot of 808s, then run the DMG Essence as a de-esser on 80 hertz and lower. Not joking. Not joking. Sounds crazy, but it's absolutely amazing. And it tightens it up better than a multiband. That's one of the best de-essers I've ever used. I use it on mastering. I use it for a frequency molding tool. It is a de-esser, but the Essence also works great on as a multiband type thing on a sub-kick. So 808s is good with. So frequencies, if they're clashing, that's when you start molding. You make sure that things are not messing up. It gets exciting at the 2K range to boost. And especially when you're mixing, you might have a little bit of ear fatigue and you want more guitar, more synth, something like that. It sounds edgy and cool, but the thing is when we master, we can boost that a bit. So really focus on your 2K range. Make sure it's not too abrasive, even if it is exciting. So saturation that we were talking about, that's where it starts bleeding through. If you're throwing a lot of saturation and distortion and stuff going on, your 2K range might be a bit harsh. So start listening for those frequencies. And as I said, it takes years and years and years to develop a time and that you can actually sit there and be like, okay, the hat at the 10K frequency is a bit harsh. I need to go 2 decibel attenuation, maybe at the 9.8, no. And you start hearing that. but at first, it's good to have an extra set of ears, something like that. Effects balances. Reverb, it's back in a big way, which is cool. I like it. A lot of shoegaze, stuff like that I do. Big reverbs. The thing is, it can wash out really bad, and especially when you get to mastering, because everything that's in your track gets more apparent. So effects is one of those things. It's happened many of times that people put a delay or reverb on a voice, and it sounds great in the mix, and once we get to the mastering stage, then it actually is way too obvious. There's no way that we can take that away as a mastering engineer. That's something that you have to do in the mixing stage. And the more and more you develop your ear knowing how it's going to get for mastering, then you can mix with mastering in mind. So your levels are the vocal present, kick and bass too much. This is important too. Once again, when we get to mastering, everything's going to be more apparent. So your levels are important. One way that you can check your levels, actually, it's a good technique, is to turn down and turn up and check different levels. When you turn things up, of course, you can focus in on the bass more. And if you're mixing too loud, then your vocals might be too quiet. If you're mixing too quiet, then your vocals might be too loud. And it works this way. So you really need to set at that 80 to 83 decibel range if you really have that set. But start rocking it back and forth so you can really tone in on what you need on your levels. Check your stereo image and always check in mono. And I do this when I'm mastering too. I know some producers, the guy that did, who was it? I think it was, not Kanye, one of those people. One of those people. The guy who mixed that actually did 80% of his mixing in one speaker. Kid you not. And it's because he knew that it goes to the club. And that's the thing, all these club systems, I don't know about this one, but most of them, 90% of them, are mono systems. So especially with house and stuff like that, you need to check your mix in mono. Listen to songs that you like. And this is one thing I didn't do for like 10 years. Until last year, my partner came in, he's like, well, since you're mixing this record, you should listen to Garbage, because they're kind of on the same line. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, I don't listen to other people's shit. No, but I was like, no, seriously? I was like, you want me to reference Garbage? He's like, really? So the first thing I started noticing though, was listening to Garbage, I was like, damn, that's a lot of high end. Like, I don't like that. So you start realizing what you don't like out of things, which means that you're learning things about yourself and learning what you can do and what you should do and what you don't like about other people's stuff. This is a great way to learn. So take a mix from someone else who will master. Take it into your project and turn it down a little bit because of course it's a mastered file. And start listening to frequency spectrum. Of course some of it's from the mastering, but a good mix, it's not entirely that. It might be a bit brighter because of mastering. But listen to other people, listen to how their kick sets with the bass. Stuff like that. All the little details. Referencing, quiet, loud, we already talked about this, take it to all different systems. One technique I like to do when I'm mixing especially, is I will actually go outside the room and I'll have a cigarette with the door open and I'll listen. And this is at the end, towards the end of my mixing. So I'm like mix, 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 mix. And when I'm like ready to fucking beat my head against the wall, then I'm like, okay, I need a break. But what I'm doing during that break is I'm still listening through the door. And what you can hear then at that point is all the mono signals going on. You can hear the vocal especially, okay? And once you learn your referencing from there even, then you know what's going to be too loud or too quiet. So everywhere you're positioned in the room, you start learning your referencing points. Whether it's smoking a cigarette, whether it's in your car, whether it's in a boombox, in earphones, whatever, start using all of them for your advantage. And the car is one of the best places, honestly. Always go to the car, especially for your low end. Yep, and have a break, don't rush, listen again. This is another thing. I used to mix, get done, produce, get done, and I did this over the years. And when I first started, you get excited, and I think it's the detail, you're not noticing the detail, so you get done really fast. And yeah, some days it's a magic thing. But my last record, I've been on for 11 months. And it's the best shit I've ever done because I focused in. And I sent it to 10 of my engineer friends and they couldn't find any flaws. That was a first for me. I spent 11 months on 10 tracks. And that's why. With the last record, I remixed the whole thing 6 times. And they paid me for a certain amount of time, but I didn't care. I went a whole month over because I wanted it to sound good. So yeah, there was little things I could hear. And each time I listened back, I was like, okay, that could be better. And if you still have that in you, take a step back, maybe work on another track, do a different genre, and then come back to it. Don't rush yourself into it. And it's so exciting, and since everything these days is like direct to consumer, and you know that you want to get this track out and get it straight to someone on Bandcamp, just chill out. That person isn't waiting. I mean, really. And I mean, you can tell them, and they still will be waiting, but they forget by next week. It doesn't matter if you're Skrillex or whoever. They forget. We're all very ADD these days with audio. So it's okay. Let them forget for a bit. Come back later, and then release it, okay? So take it slow. Easy.
Influx Studios.